it seems that part of the immune system for a healthy society is that it can laugh at itself. And I think we've also understood that it can teach us a great deal about ourselves. Are you able to operate freely as a comedian in Britain today, though?
More or less. I don't know if you know this, but I was performing at a comedy club just around the corner from here, and some students were in, and they saw me, they liked me, and they invited me to perform at the university. And when they did, they sent me what they called a behavioral agreement contract, which said that in the interest of creating a safe space for comedy, they had a zero tolerance policy on racism, sexism, classism, ageism, ableism, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-religion, anti-atheism, and it also said that all jokes must be respectful and kind.
I'm just trying to think whether there's any sort of joke that could not be potentially caught up in one of those categories.
Right, particularly the respectful and kind. I mean, even self-deprecating jokes are not kind to you, right, if you make jokes about yourself.
But you talked about British values. It was one of the things about British culture.
Yes.
Was that you took in good humour a good ribbing, as we'd call it in Australia.
Absolutely.
You'd laugh at yourself. You didn't take yourself so seriously that you immediately resorted to deep offence.
It's a sign of maturity. The ability to laugh at yourself is the sign of maturity. And adolescence struggles with that. That's why younger societies, including Russia, there isn't that culture at all.
No humour.
Russians don't like when I make fun of Russians.
Don't they?
No. So the British attitude...
Can they make fun of themselves? Well, you are a Russian, but...
Yes.
Russians can't make fun of themselves?
They can a little bit, but it's got to be very careful. You can't be too biting.
Because I remember as a schoolboy hearing the one about Sergei ordering a car, and he's told it'll arrive in 7 years' time on such and such a date. Yeah. I'm sure you've heard it.
Yes.
And he says, will that be in the morning or afternoon? And I said, well, what difference does it make? Well, it's just that I've got an appointment with the dentist that morning.
Yes.
So I'd rather pick it up in the afternoon.
Yeah. I think Richard Nixon was a big, or Ronald Reagan was a big fan of those jokes about the Soviet Union. He used to tell them.
Well, I think he used humour to devastating effect, actually.
Yeah. So
in the Cold War era.
But coming back to our discussion about British culture, I have this, it's not even a joke, I sometimes say on stage that I love this country, and I say so publicly, which is how you know I'm not really British. Do you know what I mean? There is this, I think there was a point when this was healthy, but we've now reached a point where the desire to smear and play down everything that makes you who you are has gone a little bit too far. I see it all the time. You go to a comedy club and you've got a guy in his 20s talking about how as a straight white man, he's obviously evil, and then there's a joke. And I think we're getting to that point where the desire to be self-deprecating has become self-flagellation. And I think we've got to be careful about it. And it comes from the thing that we've just talked about, which is a fundamental failure to remember your own value. Yeah. Your own value and your own values. That is something that you have to come back to. And coming back further to your question about what it's like operating as a comedian, it's becoming very sensitive. People are becoming very sensitive. I did my show in Edinburgh this year at the Edinburgh Festival about that contract and about everything that happened. And I tried to push some of the boundaries of just to make my point. And overall, this is the other thing about this, John, is that ordinary people, the public, if you like, are completely not on board with this progressive ideology.
But they're powerless. They feel powerless to do it.
Yes.
And they're busy, as you said.
Yes, but particularly powerless. And this is why people look up to comedians, writers, authors, YouTubers, whoever, who speak out against this. And actually, ordinary people feel like they can't say what they think a lot more than I do as a comedian.
Yeah.
Because I'm on stage every night, and broadly speaking, I kind of can say what I think. But if you're an ordinary person, I mean, there was a guy who was fired from his job in a supermarket a couple of months ago because he shared a Billy Connolly routine about religion on his Facebook, right? One of the things I talked about in my show is, let me ask you this. In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously, this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Go on.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media?
Yeah.
Really? What sort of things get you
Well,
arrested?
one example I give in my show is there was a young woman from Liverpool called Chelsea Russell, and people can look this up. Her friend was killed in a car crash, a 19-year-old woman, and she posted the lyrics of his favorite song on her Instagram, the lyrics. And there was a rap song, so the lyrics contained several instances of the N-word. Okay? She was arrested, prosecuted, found guilty, given 500 hours of community service and a fine, tagged, and for a year she was under 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. curfew.
My goodness.
In Britain.
In Britain.
In 2018.
So we talk about the Chinese system of social credits.
Right.
And describe it as the creation of, or the emerging of a digital prison. But we're doing it to ourselves voluntarily in the West, so to speak.
Absolutely. I mean,
So we'll cancel people socially if they say the wrong thing on social media. But you're telling me now that 3,500 people were visited by the police.
No, far more visited by the police. Far more. There are cases just half a year ago, and I defended Jo Brand, a British comedian, over this. She made some comments, which, you know, it wasn't a great joke, but she talked about this during this milkshaking episodes where people were having milkshake thrown at them. She said that, well, if I was doing it, I'd throw some acid over them, right? That's not a great joke, but she got a visit from the police on the basis that she was, quote, inciting violence. And they eventually decided not to proceed with prosecution. But it was obviously a joke. She's a comedian. She was on a comedy program. The context is very clear, right? The defining case actually in recent British history on this was the Count Dankula incident. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No.
This is a Scottish YouTuber who made. Okay, so this is quite an interesting one to explain. His girlfriend had a pug dog. You know those little ugly dogs?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm going to get in trouble
you'll
now.
be in trouble.
Yeah,
You can expect a call. You've offended pug dogs.
Exactly. And she thought it was the cutest thing in the world. Yeah. And he wanted to annoy her for a prank. So he trained the dog to be the most horrific thing that he could think of, which in this case was a Nazi. So he trained this dog to do a Nazi salute. Right? He posted it on YouTube to his 3 subscribers at the time. And overnight, the video went completely viral. 3 million views in like a week. He was arrested, convicted, found guilty, fined £800. And he is, to this day...
What precisely was the charge?
It was hate speech.
Hate speech.
Hate speech, yeah. It was grossly offensive. He was being grossly offensive. That's the correct legal terminology. And he to this day is a hate criminal. When the papers write about him, they're legally allowed to call him a Nazi hate criminal.
Wow.
That is where we are. And it really started with that. I talk about all of these things in my show, where we are now in a position where in that court case, the prosecutor argued that context and intent are irrelevant. And the judge accepted this.
Really?
So even by retelling the story to you now, I am potentially engaging in grossly offensive behavior. Context and intent, according to these people, are irrelevant. Now, get your mind around that and think about the potential implications of that.
Well, it's extraordinary.
That is where we are. It's funny, like I said, we were chatting before, I think we started, I was having dinner with a friend from Saudi Arabia about this. And I told her, and she couldn't believe it. You know, so what does that say about us? Do you know what I mean? And she was like, really, in Britain? But isn't this a free country? That is where we are. And that's why, as I say, we have to push back against it and go back to what are fundamental values as a civilization, John? What are they? Freedom of speech, freedom of association, as you said, right? And respect for the individual and the rights of the individual. That's not to say that community isn't important, but there's a level of rights that we all have.
Well, the point about the individual being important, which is to me very dear, though, is that if I say I have value as an individual, I have to say so do you.
Yes.
And I cannot diminish your value.
Correct.
That's where the community bit comes in, surely.
Yes, exactly. Unless, of course, we get to the situation where we are now, where I have more value because my skin is darker than yours.
Yeah.
I have more value because I come from abroad and you, well, actually in this case you do as well, but you know what I mean.
Thank you for watching this episode. We appreciate your support. If you value vital conversations like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel there and also click the notification bell to stay up to date with new releases.